So we have the pleasure of welcoming Allan Clarke as our special guest today. Firstly, Alan, wishing you birthday greetings as you recently celebrated your birthday.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. April the 5th it was.
All right.
I'm not going to say any more about it.
No, that's fine. We'll gloss over that one. I wonder whether we can go a long way back, and I'm wondering when you sang your first song.
Well, I can go right back to about 1948, if
Ah,
that's the Graeme and I was heard singing in the assembly one morning at school,
hmm.
and actually said, "Well, tomorrow we're going to take you out, and you can sing in front of the assembly." And I want you to do "The Lord is My Shepherd," which Graeme and I did, and we
Hmm.
opened up, and Graeme started singing harmony. So that was our first presentation, I
Hmm.
think, in front of our classmates. Yeah,
That harmony came quite naturally.
it certainly did, and Graeme always kept that to being able to, whenever I sang anything, he wouldn't have to learn that. He would
Mhm.
automatically do the harmony on top of whatever I sang.
So how did you meet Graham?
At school,
Hmm.
I went from one house to another. That meant from one school to another school. My mum took me to my first day. We got into the classroom, and the teacher said, "We have a new pupil here now. His name is Harold, because that's my real name.
Uh-huh.
And has anybody got a space beside them who would like Harold to sit next to them?" And Graham put his hand up, and I sat next to Graham, and that was it right up until today. Best of friends.
So why
Yeah,
did you leave Harold behind?
there were two Harolds in the school, and the other Harold
Ah.
always get picked on.
Hmm.
So my name to Adge, Allan
Hmm.
Adge. Yeah, that was my nickname.
Right. So how did the Hollies actually come into being?
Well, what happened with Graham and I, we started singing skiffle songs in 19, well, in when Buddy Holly came around, late 50s or middle 50s, and we became the two teens, and we got on very well with everybody that heard us. Of course, that went into another sort of thing, calling ourselves Ricky and Dane Young, which was what there was the Every Brothers, Buddy Holly before that, and
Hmm.
that's in the group after Buddy Holly was the Hollies. But we went through about 5 or 6 changes in rock and roll groups until we actually got to being outside the Oasis, and which was a Manchester club in Lloyd Street, Manchester, where we played quite frequently. And we got a new lineup, and the guy said, "Well, what are we going to call you when you go on stage?" So I said, "Well, call us the Hollies," and
Hmm.
that's when we were born. Yeah, 1962.
How did you get to listen to Buddy Holly? Where was that music coming from?
Well, at dances, when we used to go to
Mm.
dances and dancing clubs from the age of like 14 to 16 to 18. We used to go to, well, what else did we do? We used to go to parties at people's houses where I could never afford to buy records, to be
Mm.
quite honest. So, with no records, I couldn't afford to have a dance set, which was the carry around thing then. So I listened to music on the radio when my mum and dad wasn't there, and actually there weren't a lot of places in those days where rock and
No.
roll was being until the actual then Cliff Richard came along, and
Mm.
a lot of other people that were sort of trying to be the American counterparts. And but my hearing the real thing was to sit down with somebody who had the record and have something to play it on. And I think that may have been Graham.
You eventually got to Abbey Road via the
Yeah.
Cavern Club. How did you get to the Cavern Club?
Well, it wasn't Abbey Road then.
Right.
The Beatles came out uh, very big. Their first
Mm.
record, Love Me, got into the charts, and most of the record companies down in London, where they all were sort of, that's where they had their offices. They sent their recording people up to see if they could get their own version of the Beatles. And that
Mm.
was done a lot with other groups in those days. And Ron Richards, who became our producer, went to the Cavern to see us, and he liked what they saw. So he said, "Come down to London and we'll do an audition on tape." Of course, this was very exciting for us to go down to London into a recording studio. It never happened before. And when we got there, we were in the famous studio, and he said, okay, let's see what you can do. And we played most of the songs that we did on stage. And I think I've had a gig that night to go to as well. But anyway, he said, then, yes, you've got the contract. EMI is signing you up. And then we all turned professional. And we all gave up and carried on.
Did you have much contact with the Beatles over those years?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, they played the Cavern a lot. We played the Cavern a lot. And I think, you know, the Liverpudlians that went down to see the Beatles, they also liked us as well as the Beatles. They, their hearts, really. And not a lot of Manchester groups can say that. Because there was that little bit of balance, you know, between the Manchester sound and the Liverpudlian sound. But we seemed to break all that up. You know, they really enjoyed it. Yes, and we met the Beatles many times there. And frequently when we were recording Abbey Road, we used to bump into each other and say hello, and it was very cordial.
Now the hits kept coming, which we all loved, and we still love and still play them to this day. I wanted to ask you some specific things about some of the songs. Carrie Ann, who is Carrie Ann?
Carrie Ann is a made-up name. Before that, I was Tambourine Man. I think Graeme was getting there. But I actually came in late on that song because we were doing a TV show. I think it may have been the Tom Jones TV show. Not too sure about that, but you know, anyway, I was walking towards the dressing room and I heard this sound coming out of our dressing room, and I thought, that sounds really good. So I walked in the room, and Tony and Graeme were there writing this song about a Carrie Ann, and I thought, well, I better get in on this song. So I wrote the middle eight while I was standing there. I got the middle eight for that song. So I wrote the whole of the middle eight and a few of the lyrics later on in the whole song, Cat's Carrie Ann.
And the steel band, where did that come from?
That came from a street corner in London. It was Bobby and Tony, I think, and Graeme. Or that was it, Graeme. He's always on the lookout for something different. And he asked this guy with his steel drum if he'd come up to EMI recording studios and then play some tin drum things on Carrie Ann. And we paid him very generously, but he did a good job.
It sounds sensational still. Would Bus Stop be one of the biggest hits?
Not really. It was a big hit. It introduced us to the States in a big way.
All right.
But I don't think it would be called a bigger hit than He Ain't Heavy. And it wouldn't be, Oh, I Breathe, or later on in America, like Long Cool Woman, which to date, that has been the biggest hit in America for the Hollies.
You wrote that one?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I wrote that with Roger Cook. And it didn't take too long to write that particular song because it was only going to be a B-side. On Good to Go on an album. It made the album. I asked Tony and Bobby that I wanted to do a solo album. They said, well, no, if you leave, you'll leave. And I said, well, okay, you're more or less firing me, so I'll go and do this to do that. And Intermediate, the Long Cool Woman, was part of the album in America. And a publisher rang me up and said he wanted to publish this song called Long Cool Woman. And I asked, and he said, well, it's going up the charts like nobody's business. And I'm sure you want somebody to collect the money for you. So I said, yes. And it was the biggest hit we had in America. Yeah.
It's quite different to some of the other Hollies sounds.
Yeah, I couldn't actually promote that because I wasn't with the group, which was a shame.
Then there's the beautiful Air That I Breathe, of course.
Beautiful song. I met up with that, with Phil Everly, not him in person, but the Ron Richards secretary gave me a Phil Everly album and said, there's a song on there I think you should listen to. It's called The Air That I Breathe. And I listened to it in the offices at that particular time, and I fell in love with Phil's rendition of The Air That I Breathe. And, well, I'll take it to Ron and see what he says. And he loved it. He said it's a great idea. And I was wondering all the way through that if I could actually come up to Phil Everly's rendition, because as you know, we worship them, and thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. But Ron says, now come on, let's see what you do with it. And well, we recorded it, and it went number one in a lot of places. Didn't in England. I can't understand that, but there you go. It was a big.
Even that simple guitar opening, sensational.
that everybody knows what's coming when you hear Tony play that. Yeah. It's the same with Ian Heavy when you do that. It's a harmonica.
Elton John, was he a session musician on that track?
He was, and another track. He did 2 tracks, but Ian Heavy, one where we first met little Reg Dwight. His name was Dred, and we thought, you know, he was being lauded then that he was a brilliant piano player and does write the songs now and again. And when he made his approach to the piano and started, you know, doing the beautiful composition on top of Ian Heavy, we thought, well, this guy's going places.
Yeah. You can see that talent. Too Young to Be Married.
That's Tony's song.
Right.
Great song. Went down very well, especially in Germany and the states around there. Didn't do much, you know, around the world, but it was big in Germany. That's one of the better songs that Tony wrote because of the story, you know, and the implications of a young leaving home without a mum and dad knowing, and that happens too often even today. But
that was a massive hit. There was a massive hit in Australia.
Oh well, that's is it Australia? Okay, yeah, we did. Probably the only island that actually liked that one. Yeah, but we were very big in Australia. We went there quite a lot. Two tours and that.
There was an album I found not from 1971, the Hollies live in Australia.
We did that over 2.
Don't Get Sunburned.
That we did a film, but nobody knows about that. I don't think that I've got one copy actually, a copy of it, and Bobby's got a copy, I think. But it's in the Hollies sort of fan club thing. They call that the Holy Grail. Nobody knows who's got a copy of it. Well, I've got. Let the world know that.
And you faced a few personal challenges along the way.
In lots of ways. Yeah, lots. I got over most of them. Cancer being a big, you know, he introduced himself every 10 years for some unknown reason. But you know, the people in my family who've had it have got over it and they're quite healthy. And we're all carrying it.
That's great. Now we'll have some talk about the new album just released with the title "I'll Never Forget."
That's right. Yeah, well, that's an introductory song to send to Graeme because you know, we had said to each other over the years we should do something and sort of connect the ring, you know, so it's from the beginning to the end. And I thought, well, if we do an album, it doesn't actually mean it's the end. Let's shoot an album together. And he said, well, okay, let's clear some time and let's see what happens. Well, it ended up that Graeme was said to me, look, this has got to be your solo album. He said, because most of the songs that Graeme was writing at that particular time was the typical Graeme, the way he approaches his songs to things that are happening within the day. And he likes to bring things to the American and the world public of things that shouldn't be happening in the world. So he's quite politically minded. And so he said, I don't think my songs would fit you singing these songs because they're not your approach to life, which I completely understood. I do that sort of thing in a smaller way, and I'm not the type of person who wants to be in the front of a crowd waving a banner. So we got through the album, and at the end I said, well, Graeme, you've got to write a song. You've got to write a song that goes on the album because I've written everything. And he said, okay, give me a while. And he came back with a song called Buddy's Back. And I like that a lot. It tells the story of listening to Buddy Holly when he first started bringing stuff out, and we fell in love with these songs, and we were able to go from skiffle to actually doing rock and roll with the same chords, you know. So it wasn't a big transition of having to learn all different kinds of chords. It was quite an easy takeover for us to actually go into the full rock and roll chords. But yeah, he did a great job on that. And when he sent it to me, I put my vocal on it, and I said, well, what happens? He said, you can do anything you want to, Alan. So I redid it and got it into a form which does sound like Buddy Holly's playing on it. You know, we tried to emulate the sort of sound that he would have if he was doing it. And I can only thank Graeme for that.
Did you get into the same studio as Graeme, or are you doing it in separate places?
He was doing it in New York, and I was doing it in here, where I live in Tyrone. We did it though. I mean, it was quite fun actually throwing things back and saying, "What do you think?" Then him saying, "Well, I think the second verse can be this and can be that," and we did. I also had a great producer friend of mine, Francis Haynes, who used to be with the Hollies in the 80s, who more or less made this possible by because it was COVID. You know, COVID was around. It did take a year and a half to get the album done, and because of Francis, it was. We made it easy to do in a way that there was no stress. Shouldn't have stress. Not at my age. And everything went down. And the album's released and it's gone down really, really well. Buddy Holly, the single, is selling. We've got a new single out. We're actually doing the title of the album, I'll Never Forget, is the next single.
So those perfect Graeme Nash, Allan Clarke harmonies just came back naturally.
They did. And I wasn't really, because I know that, you know, whenever I'm with Graeme, we talk about the old days and, you know, the funny things that happened to us here and there. But I know it was funny actually, because we were walking down the street together in London, and of course we've both got white hair now, and it's funny because somebody actually was walking towards us, and as they got towards us, they said, "Oh look, love, it's the Hollies," which to me was a surprise. I've not been in the Hollies for 20 years, and Graeme's been in the Hollies for about 50 years. Yet actually, the two of us together, people recognised us as the Hollies, which we thought it was nice to hear that sort of thing. But yeah, Graeme and me have got that particular sound that'll never go away. It's quite so.
I've got a memory to share with you. I was 14 in October 1966 when I saw the Hollies at the Capitol Theatre in Cardiff, in South Wales.
Yeah,
still got a very strong memory of the stage presence of yourself and Graeme.
Well, you know, 1966 onwards, you know, Graeme was wanting to do something different on his own, and when we did Butterfly, the album, we more or less gave him free rein to do the things that he wanted to do. But I think at that time, Graeme was doing his own harmonies on the songs that he wrote, etc. And I personally, for myself, I thought that, you know, Graeme is now trying to take over the lead singer's part, and we had to wait and see if it had gone down like Graeme wanted it. But unfortunately, the album was great acclaimed, you know, by a lot of people, but it really wasn't bought a lot by Hollies fans until much. And well, you know, when we went to America, Graeme was in LA, meeting a lot of people and things like that. People that were friends of mine as well as his. I mean, I knew Stephen, and I knew, you know, all of the people over there. And I think he got the bug, and I think it happened when it was one night he was with David and Stephen, and they decided to have a bit of a jam. And when they did it, they were all surprised that what they did sounded quite nice. I put it in my way, but no, they came up with an unbelievable sound, which you know, sent them rocking into one of the biggest bands in the world.
The rest is history,
one of the biggest bands. And I didn't like Graeme leaving me, but funnily enough, I think that both of our careers turned out to be virtually the same. That when he left, we had another 6 hits without him, and me singing it heavy, and The Air That I Breathe, and Do Long Cool Woman. And Graeme actually said on a DVD that we actually made, that in one of his what he was saying about things about the Hollies, and he said that when he left, he never expected the Hollies to have 2 number ones, and how dare we do that without him? But that's only his sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I felt very resentful for Graeme for quite a while, until I got over knowing that I'd got someone called Terry Sylvester who was doing as good a job, sounding differently, but with the songs that we sang, it had a smoothness, you know. Whereas before in the 60s, it was all let's do everything fast. You know, that was the 60s, you know, in the moment. But we both feel that we've done great things in music separately as well as together. So, and this album is the combination of knowing him for 76 years.
I've still got the programme of that Cardiff concert.
Freddie and the Dreamers, the 4 pennies. Sure.
Regular.
Yeah, John. Yeah, Matt, yeah, all there.
You remember? They were
Yeah.
great package tours. They must
Oh,
have been.
we did it with the Stones once
Mm,
and the King. We did it with Dave Clarke and a lot
mm,
of, you know, this is when you all went on one bus and a
mm.
hotel in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah. Good days, great days.
to play 2 or 3 songs. Yeah.
Well, you could way before if you were quick. Yeah.
Mhm. Alan, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you and your family all the best from your Australian fans.
Well, I won't be coming over there, I don't think.
No.
It would be,
Hmm.
but I mean, Australia, enjoyed Australia every time they went there. You know, Australia more than New Zealand, but, you know, we did like that part
Hmm.
of the world. You know, we did some great shows there, and the sun was always shining. And I always liked going out onto the beach and
Hmm.
tried a bit, but it never happened.
You
But
didn't get
no,
sunburned.
I must get the film out and have a look at it again. I've forgotten I had. That'll bring back memories.
Okay, I'm going to conclude. Anyway, you're here in Australia today, which is something. Yeah.
Well, you say everybody in Australia, thank you for giving that part of my life, making it wonderful for me. And I know that Jenny, my wife, came with me a couple of times,
Hmm.
and we both more or less said it would be nice if we lived in Australia.
Hmm.
Too far to go away from the family. That's the choice.
I forgot to ask about Jenny and Jennifer Eccles.
Yes, well, you're right. Jenny was Jenny. Rose Ethel was Graham's wife. We wrote that song joke because King Madison Reverse didn't get into the charts really as big as we wanted it. Graham was disappointed. I said, let's write a silly song. So we wrote Jennifer Eccles, and it went to #2. And I think that was the nail in the coffin for Graham. He thought, oh, no. So he wanted to get away from it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll conclude now with that new track, with Buddy's Back, featuring Graeme Nash. It is absolutely wonderful. And
Thank you.
Perhaps I can ask you to introduce the track for us.
Well, here's a track that I wrote to actually make Graham change his mind about us doing an album together. It's about the hesitation of would we do it? Wouldn't we do it? Let's do it. How can it be? Will people still want us? So I wrote this song, I'll Never Forget, which is it's about trying to get something done when something always gets in the way. And if it doesn't get, if I don't get back with Graham, it won't matter because I'll never forget the friendship we've had for the 76 years that I've known him. And this track is called I'll Never Forget.